guys, it's James back with another video, another top 10 video. Now I did manage to get a few more movies together for Hidden Gem Spotlight, but I decided that I wanted to get one of the other top 10 lists I had out of the way. So this one is, I'm not sure why I hadn't done this one before, and if you clicked on this, you know this is the top 10 sports films. And I've had a few sports movies in my various lists, like scattered throughout some of the lists. And I finally got around to like, well, why don't I do sports films? Now I can, but I'm not going to use some of the other ones that appear in other lists because I don't like to knowingly repeat myself. If I do, it's because I didn't look hard enough at my other lists and I forgot, or I missed them, and I apologize for that. Just because I want to get as many movies, as many different movies in these lists, and not just have the same groups of movies over and over again. Because as I've said before, there's a number of movies that could be in multiple lists, easy. So, without further ado, we will start with number 10. Number 10, we have a film from 1984. I remember seeing this, taping this off TV and watched it several times. This is a film called Hotdog The Movie. And it's a skiing film. And you've got, let's see, it's a guy, Harkin Banks, who's just a young competitive skier who is hoping to compete in, what does it say, the freestyle skiing competition at Squaw Valley. So he's traveling on his own across the country to get there, and on the way he manages to pick up a group of like-minded friends who call themselves the Rat Pack, and they're led by Dan O'Callaghan, who's played by David Naughton, who is probably most recognizable for starring in the original American Werewolf in London. And he's sort of the leader of that group that Harkin joins up with, and he's like the cool funny guy. And they end up in a rivalry against another skier named Rudy, who's a Austrian. Is what he calls sort of his nemesis in the film. And it could also appear on another list that I'm still going to do. That's sex comedies. It was going to be gross out comedies, but I figured just sex comedies is more of a catch-all title. And it was gonna appear on that, but I have enough for that list. And so this one was still in the sporting genre, so I included it in here. And you've got like the group, the good guys against the bad guys, and Harkin also sort of gets himself involved in a love triangle with sort of like a girl next door kind of lady, and also in like the hot, sexy, bad girl kind of type, played by Shannon Tweed, which apparently was only her second on-screen film role. Anyway, so you watch it for the skiing and the sexual hijinks and stuff and the comedy. It's a very funny movie. So that was Hotdog the Movie. All right, number 9. Okay, that's gonna do that to me. Number 9, we have a film from 2007 called Resurrecting The Champ. And this one stars Josh Hartnett, Samuel L. Jackson, Alan Alda, Rachel Nichols, David Paymer, Terry Hatcher, Harry Lennox. It's essentially, you've got a journalist who's writing a piece, and he ends up meeting a homeless guy played by Samuel L. Jackson. And he keeps calling himself the champ and stuff, and he claims to be this legendary boxing champ. And he tells this story to Josh Hartnett's character, and it's so convincing about how he was the champ and he got screwed or whatever. He just fell on hard times and stuff, and it's so convincing to Josh Hartnett's character, so that he decides to run with it and is publishing the story. Now, I believe it's based on a true story. No, it's not. Based on an article. Yeah, okay, it's based on a true story, but it sort of has fictionalized elements to it, and it's sort of, he's impersonating a legendary boxing champ, but as it comes out, as the movie goes on, it turns out, and it's because it's based on a true story, the elements are out there, so it's not really much of a spoiler, because it's him trying to bring him back into the limelight after falling on hard times. But the son of, because it was like the champ, he claims to be Bob Satterfield, I believe. And there was a legendary match between him and another guy, and he claims to be Bob Satterfield, the champ. And the real champ's son ends up coming out of the woodwork to sort of reveal him for the fraud that he is. Because apparently he wasn't the champ, he was the opponent. And they end up analyzing video footage showing like a certain, I think it's a scar on his back or something. And it's sort of like he kind of became delusional, or like always wanted the recognition, so he had decided to impersonate the champ. But I'm sorry if I'm not explaining it that well. It's just essentially like somebody discovering a guy who thinks he's a nobody, turns out he's a champ, wants to get him back on his feet and back into regular life and give him the recognition he deserves, but it turns out he's a fraud. And it sort of brings the momentum crashing down. But there's other stuff that's involved that also happens throughout the movie and at the end, which I won't get into. But it's a good movie. I apologize for not explaining it that well. I have another one I haven't seen in a while, but I think it deserved to be mentioned. So that's Resurrecting the Champ. All right. Number 8, we have a film from 2004, and it's a golfing film called Bobby Jones' Stroke of Genius. Now, this one definitely is based on a true story. This is based on the life of the legendary golfer Bobby Jones, who was prolific in the 20s and the 30s, and he's widely considered to be one of the most successful amateur golfers to this day on the amateur golfing scene, because he won the Grand Slam, all 4 men's major tournaments in a single season. And it says that to this day he is still the only man to ever do that at the amateur level. And Bobby Jones is portrayed by one of my favorite actors, Jim Caviezel. And let me see who else might be in that. Claire Forlani, Jeremy Northam, Malcolm McDowell, Aidan Quinn. So quite a few great actors. And it just basically follows his life, where he was plagued with the fact that he had a very bad temper, and he had to overcome that to become successful in golf. And he had made a promise to his girlfriend or his wife, I believe it's his wife. Yeah, it's his wife, played by Claire Forlani. that like if his goal is to accomplish this grand slam, like all 4 titles in 1 year, and he vows to her that if he does that, he will retire. And he does that, and he retires, shocking the world because he's so successful and good at golf. But then he starts his charity work, founds the Augusta Golf Club, plays at St. Andrews, but then he also fights in World War II and stuff like that. So very, very, very well done, very well acted role by Jim Caviezel. Bobby Jones' Stroke of Genius. Number 7, we have another Bobby movie, and it is from 2004, and it's a mockumentary. It's called Blackballed, the Bobby Duke Story. And yeah, it's a film, but it's more like a mockumentary because it's sort of telling the life and career of a once great paintball star, but he was disgraced for cheating and then disappears for 10 years and comes back to reclaim his title or whatever. But it's a largely improvised movie because it has a lot of great comedic actors in it. Now you got Bobby Dukes. Oh, and they're not okay. You got Bobby Dukes played by Rob Corddry. You also have Paul Scheer in there, Rob Riggle, Rob Hubel, Ed Helms, Curtis Gwynn, Seth Morris. So you have a lot of great improvisational actors, and it's pretty damn funny. I had seen this. I think I had seen this with my best friend Bevan, and I don't remember if it was he that recommended that we watched it or not, but I watched it with him, and it's pretty hysterical, just because they take it so seriously. It's sort of like they make such a big deal of this disgraced former star. It's almost be like if it was like a famous baseball, football, hockey, basketball player or golfer or something, but it's paintball. So it's sort of like taken like this level, or it's like this level, and they're pretending that it's way up here. So it's a funny movie. Blackball, the Bobby Duke Story. All right. Sorry for the pauses. I had to keep searching all the movies. It didn't keep them in its list. All right, number 6, we have a film from 2002 called Poolhall Junkies. Now this one definitely, I also watched with my friend Bevan. I think he had watched it first and recommended it to me because we had seen the trailer several times. And this one is basically about pool sharks. And it's written, directed, and starring Mars Callahan, who's done a few things. I'd say most notably Poolhall Junkies. And he plays a pool shark, a pool hustler, and who's mentored by Chaz Palminteri. And he dreams of competing in like a legitimate pro billiard tournament, but Chaz Palminteri is always keeping him down, keeping him in his place, and like sort of kind of keeping him there, but like dashing his chances of ever advancing because he's making money off him. And when he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, he hurts him and then also takes a new protege under his wing who might be even better than Mars Callahan's character. And that's played by Ricky Schroeder from like Silver Spoons and NYPD Blue and stuff. Now you've also got Allison Eastwood's in there, Michael Rosenbaum, Rod Steiger. Rod Steiger owns the pool hall where Mars Callahan, the character, I'll just say his name, Johnny. It's where he plays all the time. And so it's sort of like a hustler trying to get out from under the thumb of the guy who put him there, and he wants to become legit. And the struggle between that. And it also has Christopher Walken in there as sort of like this really rich guy who just has nothing to do, has nothing but time. He's also a great pool player, and he decides to back Johnny. So that's sort of like he finds a mentor who's actually good for him to go against the former mentor who was holding him down. It's a great independent movie. Poolhall Junkies. I don't think it gets talked about enough. All right, number 5. We have a film from 2008. This is a martial arts film called Redbelt. And this is a movie written and directed by David Mamet. An odd choice for genres, in my opinion, for a filmmaker like David Mamet. But once you watch the film, it's you can tell it's him because it's his dialogue. And it stars Chiwetel Ejiofor. You've also got Ricky Jay in there, who was in most of David Mamet's films. You have Randy Couture, Joe Mantegna, Tim Allen, Alice Braga, Emily Mortimer, David Paymer, Rebecca Pidgeon, who's also a veteran of Mamet films, and Rodrigo Santoro. And essentially, you've got Mike Terry is Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, who runs his own dojo. And one night he helps a cop out after a shooting occurs, and the cop ends up telling some local filmmakers, Hollywood guys, about this sort of... Sorry, let's stop recording for a second. This sort of unique way that Chiwetel Ejiofor's character has of organizing his fights, where he uses these stones, black and white, and if you get the wrong stone, if you get the right stone, you're good. If you get the wrong stone, you fight with a handicap. And it's sort of a way to keep the competition fresh. And the Hollywood guys take a liking to him and want to use him as a consultant on their movie, but they end up stealing his idea of the stones. And he doesn't like that, and he threatens to pull out of the whole project, and they threaten him back with, well, we know what happened with the shooting, and we know you covered it up, so you're going to let us do this. And so it's them going against each other, and there's a martial arts competition at the end with the final fight, which is a capper on a great movie already. But with most Mamet films, the dialogue is the real star. Though Chiwetel Ejiofor does a great job. Anyway, that's Redbelt. All right, so number 4, we have a film from 1999 called Play It to the Bone. This is a boxing film. And it's directed by Ron Shelton, who had done White Man Can't Jump and Hollywood Homicide. But I think this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And this one stars Woody Harrelson, Antonio Banderas, Lolita Davidovich, Tom Sizemore, Lucy Liu in a small role, Robert Wagner, and you have cameo appearances at some of the fights by Wesley Snipes, which, like Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes were teamed up for White Man Can't Jump and Money Train, and so Woody Harrelson was also one of the stars of this, but Wesley Snipes is just a cameo in it. Anyway, it's basically this big fight is being set up, and both of the contenders end up, for one reason or another, having to back out of the fight. One's found like almost completely overdosed on drugs, and the other one, I believe, is involved in like a massive shooting, and the cops are arresting him. So they need to fill this fight. So they end up contacting separately Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas' characters, who at one point were contenders. They both had their own title shots and both lost. But they're also kind of rivals between each other. And so if they want this fight, they have to get their asses across the country to this fight. And the whole thing is they don't really like each other and they're very competitive, but they have to ride together to get to this fight. And you've got Lolita Davidovich, who has been involved with both of them at one point or another, and she's traveling with them. And I think she was with Woody Harrelson's character, and she's now with Antonio Banderas' character. So, because Woody ends up hooking up with Lucy Liu at a gas station or something, and she travels with them for a bit. But it's a great film, partially because of the final fight between the two stars. But there's two separate scenes in the movie, and one is where Woody Harrelson describes his fight against the champ at the time. Well, the guy, his title fight, where he was fighting for the title, and how it ended up in a draw, and so the champ keeps his title. And they show footage and stuff like that, and what went down in the fight. And the other one was Antonio Banderas, who had like a great record, came over from Spain, and fought for the title, and it was basically in over his head, and got destroyed by the champ. And so they each had their glimpse of greatness there. And so the vast majority of the movie is the road trip, and that's where the gold is, if you ask me. Okay, so let's play it to the bone. Number 3, we have a film from 2015, and this was recommended to me by my friend Greg, and I watched it with him, and it's called McFarland USA. It kind of goes by two titles, McFarland USA in the States and McFarland here in Canada, but it's the same movie. It's essentially a true story, mostly true story, or based on true story really. It stars Kevin Costner as he's a football coach, and he gets fired for he's yelling at his team after they lose a game. And he ends up throwing a shoe or something at the locker, and it bounces off and hits one of the kids in the head, and he gets fired. So he has to move to find, because he has to drive pretty far to find a new job. And he ends up driving down to McFarland, which borders Mexico, I believe, and gets a job as a high school gym teacher, and ends up reviving their dormant track team program, and ends up recruiting a lot of the local kids who just end up being really, really good. Some of them are like troublemakers or whatever, but he ends up recruiting a lot of the kids who end up being really good runners, and forms a really great team that he wants to take to like the state championship and stuff, which he does, because it's a true story. The facts are out there, and it is an outstanding Kevin Costner movie, which another one I don't think gets enough recognition. It's talked about almost well, maybe a little bit, but not as much as I think it should. Let me see. Kevin Costner, Maria Bello. The two most recognizable actors in the movie. All the kids, though, that are on the high school track team are great. So that is McFarland USA. All right, number two, we have a film from 2005 called Goal, The Dream Begins. And this is a film by Danny Cannon, who I said was a great TV director, but also directed some great films like Phoenix, which was on one of my other lists, and he directed this one. And this one stars Kuno Becker as Santiago Munez, and it also stars Stephen Delane, where's his name? Alessandro Nivola, Marcel Iores, Anna Friel, Sean Pertwee, and in a cameo appearance, you have Brian Johnson, lead singer of AC/DC. There's a pub that they go to frequently, and he's one of the guys sitting at the bar eating or drinking and stuff like that. And he's unmistakable because it's Brian Johnson. Anyway, it's essentially you get a young kid who's from Mexico who travels back and forth between Mexico and the States, working, getting money for his family and stuff. And he's at a pickup soccer game one day, and there just happens to be a soccer scout from the UK there, and spots him and is very impressed with what he sees. And he calls back to the guys back in England, saying like, "You've got to see this kid. I found a star." So he ends up arranging for him to go back to, I believe it's Newcastle, and he gets a tryout for Newcastle United, one of the soccer clubs there. And he earns a spot on the team. And it's all about this Mexican kid trying to integrate himself in with all these UK guys who are like really tough and rough and tumble and not accepting him, but eventually kind of working his way into their hearts, I suppose. And Anna Friel plays the team doctor who ends up getting into a relationship with him. Anyway, it is a great, I don't want to say coming of age story, but like a fish out of water. Definitely fish out of water story. Kid from Mexico becomes a soccer star in the UK and stuff. Just great movie. Speaking of great, we have the #1 film, and this is a film from 2016 called Greater. And this, again, being what it is on like with a great number of sports movies, this is another one based on a true story. Similar to Rudy in that you have an underdog kid who gets his shot playing for his favorite college team. This is just several years later, and it's based on the life of Brandon Burlsworth, who the tagline is like the story of the greatest walk-on in college football history. And it's no secret that Brandon died when he was 22. He died in a car accident. Because the movie opens with that. And it closes with that too, but it opens with that. And then it jumps back in time where like him at high school and stuff. And he's a big kid, very, very heavy set. But he wants to play for, I believe it's the Arkansas Razorbacks. I believe, yeah. And his goal is to be a Razorback. And now his brother, played by Neil McDonough, is sort of like a tough older brother where he doesn't believe in him, and then he does, and he pushes him to be successful and stuff. And let me see, you've got Frederick Lane in there, who, if you don't recognize the name, but if you watch the show Lost, very first season, the marshal that was escorting Kate on the plane, that's Frederick Lane. He plays the Arkansas football coach that interacts with Brandon. You got Texas Battle in there, Nick Searcy, Michael Parks, Leslie Easterbrook of Police Academy fame, and Christopher Severio plays Brandon Burlsworth. And yeah, as much as people love the movie Rudy, I love the movie Greater. I don't want to say it's greater than Rudy, because that's just too on the nose. But, yeah, going through his high school life and the struggle to get recognized by the college where he gets there and he's not on the team, but he keeps working and working and working, and they give him his shot, and then he just sort of blows it wide open and becomes a star. And I believe one of the last things he does is I think he gets recognized by the NFL, or he gets possibly drafted, or he's going to be drafted before he dies. So, yeah, it brings it down at the end, but it's such a great story. Oh, it's such a great story. Now, I remember hearing about it, and then when I finally picked it up, I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. And wow, such a great movie. Anyway, technical snafus aside, I hope you liked this episode. And a little cut in the middle. I hope it's not too disjointed. Anyway, like and subscribe. As always, comments and suggestions are very welcome. And I will see you next time. Toodles.